Okay, so I was originally going to hold off doing this series until after I was done with my box office bomb review series. But the issue is that that's going to take me a couple of years. And, like, this just keeps piling up in, like, back of my head. Like, oh, that'd be good for this series. That'd be good. But I wasn't going to start this series until after the box office bomb series. Don't worry, I'm still doing the Examining the Bomb series. I am going to completely finish the box office bomb series. But the thing is that every now and then I come across some movies that they weren't box office bombs or successes. They weren't hated or beloved. They just kind of slip in under the radar. And it's movies that I don't think you've seen. Now, granted, there's going to be the inevitable guy in the comments down below. It's like, I've seen that movie, so the title's wrong. I'm not saying you haven't seen these. I'm saying I don't think you've seen these. You might prove me wrong. Say, yeah, I've seen this movie. But the point of this series, this new film series that I want to do, is kind of put a spotlight on movies that are a little bit more obscure than your general movie. And so, for starters, there's going to be a couple rules that you should know about this new series. One, with these movies, I'm not doing any spoilers. I'm going to be as vague as humanly possible and tell you certain aspects that I liked and maybe didn't like. But for the most part, this is going to be a more positive series of videos on my channel of movies I don't think you've seen. And I'm also not going to do any of the movies that I am covering in the box office bomb list that I've been working on. So if you see any movie in that list that you're a little interested in, I'm not doing another video in this series on that, because that I've already covered those. I'm done with those, and if any of those look interesting to you, then you can check those out yourself. But I'm not going to cover The Finest Hours there and then The Finest Hours here. Even though The Finest Hours is probably a movie you haven't seen, I've already covered it in my box office bomb series. So there's no point in me covering it here in the I don't think you've seen this movie series. And then I'm also not going to do insanely popular movies. So you're never going to see a Star Wars movie on this series. You're never going to see a Lord of the Rings film or The Godfather or anything else notable if you've ever seen any movies. This is going to be for more unusual, obscure movies. There might be a couple of like big movies that were big at the time, but like no one seems to talk about anymore. And you know, like, most people probably have no idea what that movie is. Back in the day, it was probably decently big, but now, these days, people don't really know. And so I might cover some of those, but for the most part, this is going to be kind of more obscure movies that I think are really excellent, or old movies that just didn't get the treatment that it deserved back when they came out. So you will see some slightly big movies, but for the most part, it will be more unknown, obscure movies that might have bombed but did not make the greatest box office bomb list of all time. And so I feel the first movie to start off on this list would be Island Zero. Now, I came across this movie a while back, and I was not expecting a lot out of this, but I had read the synopsis and I was seeing creature feature, group of human survivors. Like, I like that setup to any movie. And so, one thing that I absolutely loved with this movie was the setting and the characters. They were all pretty solid. The setting, it takes place on an island, obviously. But the characters, actually, they did a good job fleshing out some of the characters. Especially kind of like the main character. She was pretty fleshed out to a good degree, and I liked that. I was getting a little bit of like an Aliens type of homage there. And so that was neat. I didn't feel the acting was too terrible. And I thought the main threat in this movie was pretty original. I probably would have decided a little different, but I liked what the threat was. It didn't feel just thrown together. It felt like they actually put some thought into it, how it worked, how the ecosystem works around it. And that was kind of refreshing. I liked that. Now, this movie wasn't perfect. I had a couple of issues, especially like there were certain points in the movie that the camera is zoomed way too much in on certain frames. I mean, like right now, you see me perfectly fine. It's well framed, and like just out of the blue, the camera will just zoom in like this, way too close to someone, and it just makes absolutely no sense. And because of that, there's some really shoddy camera work as well. The, shaky cam and, like just not being able to see anything. So this movie isn't perfect. It has its issues. And then another thing I didn't like was the ending was kind of abrupt. Was it a cliffhanger? Not really, but I would have liked to have had more of a resolution to this ending, because towards the end of the movie, they introduce a couple of elements. It's like, oh, okay, that's new. Care to elaborate on that? Nope, movie's over. It's like, oh, okay then. So, is this a perfect movie? No. But it's a fun creature feature that I think is worth checking out. I don't think you've seen this movie, and so that made the list. This is the first movie on the I don't think you've seen this series. And so basically the title of this will be I don't think you've seen Island Zero. So yeah, I enjoyed the film. I thought it was pretty decent. A nice little surprise, nice little indie surprise. And if you're at all into horror or, creature features, whatnot, then I would recommend checking out Island Zero. So anyway, that's been our review of the first chapter in the I Don't Think You've Seen This Movie series. And my name's Christopher Connell with Lemon Reviews, and that will be all for today.